Meeting. My name is Keith Romano. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's the Inland Wetlands Commission meeting for the town of Monroe. Today is August 26, 2020, and the time is 7:05 p.m. Take a roll call of members of the commission. Tonight's remote meeting. Please answer here or present, starting with myself, Keith Romano, Lois Spence, our vice chair and secretary.
Here.
Jim Stewart, our treasurer, who's also a licensed engineer and surveyor in the state of Connecticut.
Here.
You. We have then Clark Gingras.
Here.
Ross Mastracco. Ross there?
I'm here, yep.
Yep. BJ Hall.
Here.
And we have Denise Alstead, who is our inland wetland agent, and Donna Shazinski, who's our office manager, and Sarah Stroud, who's our recording secretary. Before we start, I'll read our mission statement and how the meeting will proceed. Inland Wetlands mission statement. The objective and purpose of the Inland Wetlands Commission is to provide for the overall protection and preservation of the inland wetlands and water courses within the town of Monroe. Meeting procedure. In the normal course of our meetings, we will hear public hearings and other applications. The protocol for public hearings is to have an applicant make a presentation to the commission during which and after which the commission will be asking the applicant questions. Due to remote meeting status, I'd like to ask the applicants to keep presentations as concise as possible. The commission will then review town staff and other independent comments. The meeting will then be open for public comment. I will ask that all comments be made to the chair or commission. After any and all comments pro, in opposition, or of a general nature are made, the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond. Again, due to remote meeting status, please keep comments or questions direct, and a time limit of 3 minutes may be imposed. It's not necessary that the applicant respond, but generally in their best interest to do so. There will be no further opportunity for new questions unless new materials entered into as evidence or testimony during their response. Please keep all comments pro and con specific to inland wetlands related matters. Other applications that do not involve a public hearing will follow a similar format, with the exception there will be no public comments allowed. The meeting follows our published agenda unless otherwise amended. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There is one under item C, enforcement, number 7, notice of violation discussions. It's listed as IWV 2020-08, 169 Purdy Hill Road. It's actually 169 Enterprise Drive. And that's the only change that I have.
Okay. Right now, sorry, at this point in the meeting, it's our general public participation. Does anybody in the public have anything to ask in a general nature to the commission? Now, we have everybody on mute.
I can.
How do we deal with that? We just unmute everybody
But
for.
I just unmuted them.
Everybody, or all the people we don't know. All right, so I'll say again, this is a public moment. Anybody that's on this in this meeting have anything to say of a general nature to the commission? Okay, doesn't sound like there's anybody there for that.
Okay.
All right, I will go to regulated. So again, I'll state as I have previously. We're going to run the previous few formats that we've done, where we're going to go through the entire agenda and then come back and work on IWC 2020-03 and tonight we also have Chris Sullivan, who is going to I believe present on that application, his findings. So we're just going to move along, and just remember we're going to come back to that at the end of the night, spend at least an hour with them on that one. Really. So we have the subdivision report, recommendation to P&Z Commission. There's none. Regular meetings, there's no public input. Our public hearings. IWC 2020-03R, we're skipping for now. IWC 2020-04, I-56 Pepper Tree, proposed gravel parking area for commercial vehicles.
That would be Mr. Rios.
Yes, good evening, Commission.
Mr. Rios, you're just going to state your name and your address for the record, and then you could go on. I think that's how we're starting with this, right?
Mhm.
Good evening, Town of Monroe Commission. My name is Cesar Rios. I reside at 556 Pepper Street, Monroe, Connecticut, zip code 06468. Good evening, Commission.
Good evening. You can go ahead and present your application, to us.
Okay. Regarding my proposed application, I submitted an application to the Town of Monroe after a violation letter that I have received on the mail. The intention that I had with the gravel driveway that I have re-gravel over is in order to park my truck and my equipment that I needed for my work that I do, that is a landscaper and home maintenance. And I am also install a gate in order to provide a little bit of privacy from the front of the house. The other intention that I had with this property is, because it's a single family house, it is also to live in it and have my office for administration. I following all requests from different zoning department, Town of Monroe zoning department, to comply with the gravel driveway, and we did all of the tests necessary requested at the moment. My last intention with the whole property is to establish my home and my business, because we just moved on February this year, and to make a living, to support my family, basically. That's where I end my statement.
Does anybody on the commission have any questions for Mr. Rios on this application? Oh, did we just do a determination? No, it's already.
I do. I'm looking at the board and I do not see your engineer here. Are you making the presentation solely by yourself, Mr. Rios?
Yes, I have also Mr. Steven Dunzer, who's the scientist who did the soil report for me. He's online with us.
Okay. I noticed in the comments from both Denise and from Scott, our engineer, and our wetlands coordinator agent, that P&Z is going to require that this area be paved. I personally like the gravel, but P&Z has requirements that they require, and this will change the hydrology. This will change the impervious area, and it will change the runoff. And all that. So we would need, I would think, another report that states what happens with that water that's being off-cast by the impervious pavement.
Mrs. Pence, is that the test pit data report? That we just did, I think, a few days ago, and we emailed it to as much as we can at the commission, the last report. And this term that is a request on the comment for stormwater control, improvements for stormwater attenuation, and the test pit data. And we did that. After that, my engineer, basically, he doesn't think a asphalt driveway needs to be built. There is other way, and what also he think, and I think that the gravel is make a very natural way for drainage.
Let me see if I can help out here. I think what Mr. Rios, I think what Lois is saying is that we can approve your plan on a wetlands matter, but you may still not be complying with planning and zoning. And if planning and zoning makes you change your plan, you will have to come back here and get approved for something different, I think that's what we're getting at, Lois, right? So we can look at your application and make comment and possibly even, move it down the line. But you may end up back here if it has to be paid. So almost like you should have, that should have been the first. You should have looked into that maybe first. But you came to us with an application, and we can base a decision based on what you present to us tonight. But like I'm saying, just to reiterate, if you end up paving it, it could change a lot of things and require you to actually come back again. But that's out of our hands. That's a planning and zoning matter. So if now I see you have, so you said you have a soil scientist here to speak on your behalf if necessary. He may know something. Your engineer doesn't seem like he's here to comment in your behalf. Mr. Rios.
Mr. Dancer.
Good evening. To begin with, can everybody hear me? Can someone nod if they can hear me? Thank you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm assuming the volume is okay. For the record, my name is Stephen Danzer. I'm a soil scientist and wetlands scientist. I'm not involved with the decision regarding whether or not it should be paved or gravel. Obviously, from a non-point source pollution perspective, I would think that the most optimum use of that backyard would be to keep that in gravel. But I wasn't involved in whatever the discussion is between P&Z and the PE for the applicant. So I don't think I have a lot to offer there. But what I do have to offer is, I don't know if all the commission members have made it out to the property, but the one feature of the property that's worth mentioning is that the bulk of the wetland in Mr. Rios's property within proximity to the gravel driveway is actually lawn over wetland soil. There's a watercourse and another smaller watercourse along the eastern property boundary. There's quite a bit of woods forest in back of that, and there's a couple of feet of wooded wetland, natural wetland vegetation right off the floodplain, but the bulk of the wetlands in his backyard is just lawn over wetland soil. I just wanted to kind of bring that to everyone's attention, just in case that comes up with regard to the fact that the gravel parking lot is, at least on the map, it appears that it's right against the edge of the wetlands. I just want to reiterate the fact that that area is low on over wetland soil. Legally, it's wetlands, but it's the ecological, biological quality of that is not very high. Anyway, unless anyone has any questions, I will give my time back to everybody else.
Thank you. Denise, you're on mute, and Donna, we can't see you anymore.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this condition that Lois brought up?
Well, I did mention it in my first round of comments because I know that that's something that P&Z is going to require. I did talk to them a little bit about, because there's the dumpsters, and dumpsters typically. Can you hear me? I don't know whose feedback.
Someone's got some noise going on.
So there was a conversation with P&Z, and because there's dumpsters back there, they said that part of the zoning requirements are dumpsters have to be enclosed and they would be on asphalt. That's the only reason those comments were there, because I'm trying to preface so that maybe we could tie it up as one thing and not have to have Mr. Rios keep going back and forth with different things. I mean, we like it to be gravel, but my understanding, zoning is going to require it to be paved. Now, maybe they could pave it just under the dumpsters or something, and leave the remainder as gravel. I don't know. That's something.
I guess, again, Lois made a good point that if we approve it and it's not going to get through, you'll have to come back here, correct?
I didn't hear you, Keith.
I'm sorry. If Lois's comment is that, which is a good one, that if we approve it, but it doesn't make it to P&Z, doesn't make through P&Z, the plan that if he has to alter the plan, pave it, drain, he's got to come back to us.
Correct.
So it's really a tough one. I mean, if we hear it, we're all going to spend our time, to do it. And then if we approve it, he might come back. He might have to come back anyway. So
now, since I've been out of the office, I don't know when he's on the agenda for zoning. So I don't know if that's time-wise,
well, he may, you're saying, so I'm sorry, Denise, but we're going back to 2 meetings a month next month, right?
Correct.
So we're 2 weeks away from our next meeting. So, Mr. Rios, can you hear me? Mr. Rios? If you like, we have a meeting in 2 more weeks. So if you want 2 weeks to clarify, and make sure that we're not going to waste, your time and money and our time on something, that's up to you. You can proceed if you like, but you understand the problem we may have.
It's a tough decision, kind of, especially because I'm being this is actually the first time I hearing about a pave the over, because I've been doing pretty much everything requested from the commission and from this zoning department also. If you need an answer right now from me, is to proceed. And yeah,
Let me just ask one other thing of our agent, Denise.
Yeah.
Does Mr. Rios, if he were to wait 2 weeks, is he still within his time frame to address the violation, or is he running out of time?
We don't put a timeline in when it's an NOV. I don't have that with me, and I was trying to get a hold of Donna. I don't know where Donna went.
Okay, so clearly we know he's here to address the problem, which we're grateful for.
Right. So he got an initial violation, and with the violation, he also zoning told him because of the zone he's in. So he was working with both us to fix our wetlands violation and also get approval from zoning.
Okay.
Donna, does he have a timeline on his NOV? Did we have a
I'm sorry,
timeline?
say again?
Pardon?
Who?
Mr. Rios,
Does
did
who?
he have a deadline? I don't think he did.
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't think he did either.
Okay.
All right, so I think that's about all the things we could talk about on that. So, Mr. Rios, that is your intention now to continue on with your application?
Yes, please. And I understand regarding the violation note, the violation was made because a post has been installed and on the area where the town of Monroe property that is the next to mine. Now after this survey that I've been done, the post and the fence and the gate shows that it's inside my property. So I need to clarify where that violation ends.
All right, Donna, I don't know if I should know this or not, but this is a public hearing?
Yes, it is.
Is there public comment on this application?
There, is there a timeline? He can go to the next meeting, but it just opened tonight.
No, my question is this a public hearing where the public can comment on it?
Yes.
Okay, all right, that's all. Just for proceeding. Okay, so I'll go down the line as I see everybody. Lois, you had that question. Was there anything else that you want to comment on? You're on mute. Lois, you're on mute.
Sorry. There were comments from both Denise and from Scott that really should be addressed before we go too much further. And that,
Well, let Denise then do that since it's her comment.
she could.
Denise, you okay with that?
Sure. I mean, in my comments that were submitted is what Lois is talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, and basically we touched on it a little bit. It was about the where I said that P&Z will require the dumpsters to be enclosed as part of the regulation. I mean, it's not in the wetland thing. I was trying to premise because I know that they're going to be doing this.
Yeah.
P&Z is reviewing the application and they will be requiring that the parking area to be paved because it's zoned an industrial commercial property.
Okay.
Now, if there's a way that he could work something out with zoning, that's another thing because it sounds like our commission is okay with it being gravel. But we can't overstep our boundary because if it's a zoning regulation, we have to follow zoning.
He's aware of that,
Yep.
that.
I mentioned that there's some inland wetland markers that we should have shown on the plan, and I could work with Mr. Rios on that one very easily. Because there's trees there, we could do something, so I'm not too concerned, but it's something that I want put in the record. Maybe a physical barrier at the edge of the approved parking area or dumpster unless it gets reconfigured somehow. Because if you look at the plans, the gravel area is very close to the wetlands delineation in several spots. And yes, I agree with Mr. Danzer that it used to be lawn that was filled over wetlands, and the gravel is better than grass in some respects, but I shouldn't say gravel is better than grass, but and I just mentioned about the gate and the fence. When you look at the drawing, that was part of the violation, and when you look at the plan, it looks like it was something existing where it is existing now, but it was actually something that was put in. So I was just saying, maybe we should have something on the drawing that kind of lets you know that this has just been installed type thing. Not proposed necessarily, it is existing, but if you look at it, you would think it's always been existing. That was my only comment. And then I talked about
Okay,
maybe.
well, you want to talk, I'm sorry, you want to talk about Scott's comments?
I don't have Scott's comments in front of me.
Okay, Lois, do you have them?
I do. Let's see. Under stormwater control, now I think he's taking it with the concept that P&Z is going to make him pave it. Improvements to
No, it's not.
stormwater attenuation and water quality control should be provided in order to address changes in site runoff and to include a report with calculations. So that was having to do with extra impervious surface. And test pit data in the location of stormwater improvements should be provided. Depth to redoxamorphic features, depth to water, and cross-section soil description. Since this is basically a filled-in wetland, the backyard is a filled-in wetland, that's an important, I guess, information that we would need to have if he was going to try to attenuate any stormwater. And
So that's not on the application, so let's stick with.
no, it is not. I'm just reading Scott's comments because
No,
they
I
were.
appreciate it.
And a completed site stabilization and restoration bond estimate should be submitted.
Right.
So we need a bond. And I'm in favor. I like Denise's concept, and we almost always do this. We have some kind of a physical barrier between the dumpster pad and the equipment and etc. Between that and the wetland, some kind of a physical barrier, and there should be a planting buffer of some kind also. It just lends a little bit more protection to what's left of the wetlands.
Okay. All right, I can move it down for other comments.
That's it for me, I believe.
Thank you. Commissioner Stewart, do you have any comments on this application?
Yeah, well, I asked last week, I don't recall what the answer was, but what goes in the dumpsters?
The dumpsters are empty. Is the parking area over the gravel where I will park the dumpster is just to basically to park the dumpster. Dumpsters are empty.
So they never nothing ever goes in them?
Nothing. We're not storage. We're using the dumpster on the work site, and we're using transfer station, recycling transfer station to empty it and bring it to the backyard and park it.
Okay, so it's just storage for the dumpsters.
Correct, just to park.
That may change things if that's, if it's not a dumpster like P&Z's thinking.
No.
It may change things a little bit. I don't know.
And what is the power washing equipment that's on your drawing? What is that? Is that a
Sure.
shipping container or what?
Sure. That's also part of my service that we provide with my company is a power washing exterior of the houses. So what that machine does is a hot power washer and is storage about 500 gallons of water.
Oh, so it's a trailer?
Correct. Basically,
Okay.
the trailer that when it goes over the truck.
Okay, so is it possible, I mean, to pull this back a little bit? I understand it's lawn now, but pull it away from the wetlands and provide more distance from where the brook is near your gate? To try to pull that back and put, as Lois talked about, some sort of plantings or something on either side. I guess that's the one thing I'd like to see. And if you could do that, then I could see, approving either the gravel or the paving if the stormwater was done correctly.
I will be happy to do that. That's absolutely something that my wife like it also, to provide a little bit more privacy and also not to show the whole equipment in the backyard. And yes, definitely I want to do that.
Is that it for you, Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
All right, Commissioner Mastrocco, do you have any comments on this application?
There's no salt kept on the property for like snow removal?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Do you store any salt products for like snow removal in the wintertime?
No, I mean, how I said before, this is gonna be my first winter in this house, and every what I store for the power washer equipment is some soap and detergent, and those are storage inside the garage. I'm assuming when the winters came, snow, and I will have some salt or something also storage in the garage. I mean, I will figure out a way to clear out the snow for sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, for resale for customers and client properties,
No. That's not my type of the work that we provide. We just do this.
That's good news.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
That's it for you, Ross? Okay. Commissioner Gingrich.
I'm all set. They've already asked the same question, so I'm all set.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Hall.
I would support this with, as Denise had mentioned, with some barrier and plantings to separate the wetlands area. But since the primary use is just storage of the empty containers and the trailer with the power washing, I don't have a problem with it.
All right, thank you. I will now ask if anybody in the public has any comments. So Donna, you're gonna unmute everybody again? Is that done? Okay. Is there anybody in the audience has anything to say in favor of this application?
This is Paul Huber, 559 Pepper Street, across
Caller number
across-
4. Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
across the property. All I can say, I appreciate what Mr. Rios does, and it is actually an improvement over the previous occupant of the property.
Is that it, sir?
Yep.
Thank you. Anybody else have to speak in favor of this application? And Donna, there's still a lot of muted microphones. I don't know if that's just if we're good. At least on my
I don't know,
side.
I did hit unmute all. Okay.
I think we only did the callers. There's names. All the callers are unmuted, but all the names are still muted.
Nope. I've unmuted everybody that I can. Everybody
Okay, so
else
maybe
is-
these people are staying muted on themselves. I'll just ask one more time.
Yeah.
Is there anybody here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anybody here to speak in opposition to this application? Is there anybody here who wants to speak on this application in the general nature? Okay, I think we're done with this one then, right? So
No,
Saria's-
I have something I still need to qualify. We need to know what plantings and where they're gonna go. We need to have a bond estimate. And we need to have placement of whatever barrier and what kind of barrier. That needs to be determined before we close the hearing, because that should not be Denise's responsibility to be the judge in this case. So
Right.
I don't know if it's wise that we leave it open and he can consult perhaps with Denise in the office. or I'm not sure how we should do it, but those three things need to be dealt with before we close the hearing.
Okay, so we're gonna leave this open, and so Mr.
The
Rios
other
can
thing I-
address them.
The other thing I need to do is read the exhibit.
Oh, yes, of course.
Is
Hold on, Mr. Rios, give us a minute.
Okay, exhibit number 1 was the inland wetland agent review comments. Exhibit number 2 was the town engineer review comments. Exhibit number 3 is the abutter notice mailing receipt. Exhibit number 4 is drainage computations that were emailed by H&K Associates. Exhibit number 5 was a map. I emailed those to the commission, but you don't have hard copies yet. And that was a 1-sheet plan titled Proposed Drainage Plan Construction for 556 Pepper Street by H.K. Associates. The document was dated August 21st, 2020. And then Exhibit 6 are photos of the public hearing signs that were posted at the property. And that's it.
This would also give, if we leave this open, it would also give Mr. Rios a chance to talk to the planning and zoning administrator and see what he feels the lay of the land might be. Because Mr. Rios, if we approve this and then P&Z says, no, you have to pave it, you have to come back to wetlands, it's going to cost you more money. So it's to your advantage to do it this way and get it all taken care of before we finish.
okay.
All right,
Yes,
so thank you. We're gonna table
Continue
this.
this till the
Were you saying something?
I should also ask Denise, are you okay with working with Mr. Rios in the office with what the things that we need?
Yes, yes, I am. Just so he knows I'm not back into the office until after Labor Day because I'm quarantining right now. So,
Okay.
so that will have to be done by email.
Yeah.
Because our next meeting is September 9th, which is the week end after Labor Day.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
agree.
Do we do a vote on tabling it, or we just table it?
I don't think we need to.
No,
Okay.
Okay. All right. So now moving along, we're going to enforcement.
I think it's 9/9. Okay.
IWV 2019-15, 1380 Monroe Turnpike, disturbance within upland review area, 30-day time extension granted to address violation, 9/9/2020.
So those two are just, you guys granted the 30-day extension, and that still is with the attorney, so we haven't heard anything from them.
Okay. So we're all set with that now. IWV 2019-16, 43 Bird's Eye Drive, disturbance in upland review area, 30-day extension granted, address violation, 9/9/2020. This is the same situation?
Yes.
Okay. IWV 2020-6588 Monroe Turnpike, unpermitted activity within upland review area.
And if you give me a minute, I will put up the stuff that she sent you. Okay, Denise, the 588 is up.
Okay. So I reached out to the property owner. This is where Steve's is, I believe, is what it's called. It's right next door to 574 Monroe Turnpike, which was a project that was, I think it was the old Goodwill. It was converted. It's now a liquor store. So I was out doing an inspection for the CO for the property next door. And I had noticed in time, there had been a lot of debris that had been thrown in the back. So the property owner at 5, did you just make me?
I did.
Okay. Hold on. Everything's popping up as I'm talking, so. There we go. So, wait, that's, hold on. What I have here it is
That's the wrong one.
minute, okay. So basically the property next door, there's a business. It seems to be a landscape business that's being utilized outside of the property. Zoning is aware of it. It's not a business that's allowed in this zone. That's another story. But they have over time, and I had sent them a letter saying, look, you have a business there. You have some equipment and different things within the wetlands upland review area. They did not respond to me. And when I put this on the agenda, the photos show that it's gotten even worse. Now there's a lawnmower, there's tires, there's more debris, and this is all right next to the major river that's in the back of the, here we go. That's to the back of the property. And if I have control, let's see. Nope. I think you have to give me control again.
Okay, sorry. Okay, sorry.
That's okay. Why does it keep coming back to that same one? Is it because it's sharing my desktop?
It is.
Why is it not doing?
Well, another thing we could try is I think we all have this, right? We all have, this is all sent to us.
Sure. So if you go to the second page, you'll see the potential violation map, and you'll see the area that I put up in pink.
Yes.
That whole area is filled with tires, old pulled out trees, landscaping equipment. There's a dumpster back there. No, I still.
All right. I mean, we've seen this before.
And if you just
seen it.
continue, if you look through the pictures, you'll see all the stuff that is there.
I don't mean this specific property, but we've seen similar things like this before.
Right.
You know, we're gonna, you know.
I tried getting them before it hit to this point, but they failed to respond to me. So.
Well, I think what we can do is we can send them a certified letter or whatever, however you do it, and say you got 3 days to clean it up, or you're going to start accruing fines. Or,
well, either that or we make them come in front of the board and explain what they're doing.
well,
I mean, I tried it the nice way.
They're violating the zoning regulations. They're not doing anything. It's not like nothing to negotiate. It's gotta leave, right?
Right. I mean, they need to work with the zoning because it's a business that's not allowed in there. But there are tires and lawnmowers and dumpsters and everything that's all in the upland review area. And I mean, some of it's pretty close to the wetlands as it is.
Well, it's in the 100-foot setback. It looks, what's that green in the middle? That's a brook, right?
That's the wetlands.
I'm talking about that solid line. Is that on a brook?
We give it thickness. But that edge, that is the edge of the wetlands.
Gotcha. All right. So I don't know. I mean, it seems like this just shouldn't be here at all. So what is there to discuss? I think it just has to be removed, correct? I mean,
right. And so, like I said, the first time I tried to get them to acknowledge And I said, if I don't hear from you, this is going to be escalated and then you're going to be required to go in front of the board. And they did not respond. So I'm
So then
escalating.
in that case, you want to be a little bit nicer and come to the September 9th meeting with a resolution or 30 day clean it up within 30 days. Come to the second meeting with you know, a clean bill, and you know, we're done.
I think all we
So-
need to do is send him a notice of violation, isn't that true?
Right. And in the notice violation, we typically tell them that they have to appear in front of the commission.
That starts the clock.
And then that will start
Yeah.
the clock once they come in front of the commission. So do we
Or they
want
could
them
just
to
elect
come,
or they could just elect to remove everything.
which is what I tried being nice the first time.
Well, I'm saying we can still keep that on the table. You know, we come if you need time or if you need a plan or you got a plan for it, be at the next meeting, explain to what you're going to do, or you got 30 days to do the whole thing. Give them two options.
So tell them to either be at the 9/9 meeting or,
I'm not telling. I'm just throwing out a suggestion. Just make sure don't make it think I'm sounding like I'm telling you to do this. This is
No,
like
no,
my
I'm-
suggestion how to deal with it. So you can clean it up in 30 days and be at our next meeting and be clean. Not our next meeting, our meeting a month from now. Okay, say okay, we cleaned it up. There's nothing there that's going to take any contractor very long to remove. Okay, and then he's got 30 days, or he comes to us on the 9th and makes us you know, a case for himself.
Technically,
that's fair.
Denise already did that with the letter that was dated June 15th. She said, reach out to me, you know, clean it up, or a notice of violation may be issued. So
But don't we already have a notice of violation? Because I already know we were looking.
I
no,
don't believe so.
no, we don't. I premise this with a nice letter saying, please reach out to me. Let's try to get this taken care of. If you don't, a notice of violation will go out.
I thought this violation background report meant it was already out.
No,
Okay.
because I said a notice of violation may be issued unless this is addressed in a timely manner.
All right, so send a notice of violation and then the
And have
notice
them
saying
come in front of the
30 days to clean it up, or
Okay.
they've got to be at the next meeting to explain what's going on.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
So we'll give them 30
that
days to
it?
clean it. Are you saying 30 days to clean it up? And if they're not clean, I'll send them a note saying you're at this meeting. Or
Yeah,
in
so
it,
I'm
30
saying-
days.
Either come to the next meeting and explain the situation, okay, and say we need this much time, or you know, this is a previous, whatever they got to explain, however they want to deal with it, or they
Okay.
just mop it up, make it all disappear within 30 days, and there's no penalty. You know, we're not gonna go any further with it.
The notice
Or
of
give them an
violation
opportunity
does not
to-
assess a penalty.
What's that? Yeah,
A
not gonna
notice of
assess it.
violation does not assess a penalty. It just tells them they're in violation and
Right.
that basically what you're saying is what the notice of violation says and accomplishes, except that it's in writing and it's on paper and all that stuff. It doesn't
Right.
really do anything until we've met with him and we decide what happens next.
So that's when, if we tell him to come to the 9/9 meeting, then we could say to him, you have 30 days to clean it up, or it's going to get escalated higher.
Well, what I meant by what I said was that when he comes here on September 9th, he needs to explain the situation and tell and either say, hey, I know I'm in the wrong. I'm gonna fix it. I need this many days, whatever the reason is. The 9th, he can come in front of us and he can state his case, and we can talk to him about it then. If he doesn't come by the 9th, we're expecting everything. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not the boss. I'm just saying I'm throwing it out there as an option so we can just stop spending a lot of time on things like this. Anybody else want to make a comment about this violation?
I
Commissioners?
think we should just send him a notice personally. We need a motion on that? Donna, do we need a motion to send a
Oh,
notice?
I mean, no, not really. I mean, you can, yeah, sure.
So you can poll the commission and see what everybody
Or you
feels.
can
and
make
then
a
I
motion. Lois, you can make a motion.
I move that we send them a notice of violation.
All right, we got a motion. Did someone second that motion?
Second.
From Commissioner Hall. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, I think that's unanimous. Send them the letter.
Yep.
Next, we are on IW 808 169 Enterprise Drive, unpermitted activity within upland review area.
Same type of thing. A title searcher called asking what we knew on the property. In doing research to check the property, it was observed that, once again, they don't have an improved site plan, so they also have a zoning issue, but there's, the pink area on the map that is up right now is activities within the 100-foot upland review area.
Okay.
So it's kind of the same thing. So just, I think, send them a letter to have them explain what they're doing and
Good.
Have you made any contact with them yet so far? Or there's no letter or
No.
anything?
no, I had not done anything prior. I can, if you want me to do like I did for the other guy. Because actually, just so you know, when I went and did research on 169 Enterprise, there's a couple ones adjacent to it that are just as bad. And so I have to do some more. There's
say
a couple
we
more
do.
letters that need
I'm
to
in
go out.
favor of handling it just like the last one.
Pardon? Yep.
I'm in favor of handling it just like the last one.
Okay.
We're gonna be consistent.
Right.
Okay?
Mhm. Agreed.
Lois?
Yep.
Go ahead and do your thing.
I think that's the right way.
Make your motion.
Oh, I don't know if we need a motion. This is an informal reach out from the wetlands agent.
No, I think we should send a letter.
We need a motion to have the wetlands agent contact.
No, hold on, Lois. Can I interrupt you for a second? There's a difference here between this place and the other place. This is a new development. Okay, so anybody who's operating in here should very clearly understand what they can do on this land. Right? So that's that building that we just talked about. There was any regulations on it. So anybody who's operating an industrial process here, I think those are empty dumpsters. They should know that they're in violation. So I don't see where we can't just send them out a notice of violation.
We can. It's been going on for 10 years.
Yeah, but it's a new development that has regulate. I'm pretty sure there's pretty good regulations on what you can do on this property, and I can't see how anybody who hires a lawyer and buys a piece of land should ever be misinformed as what they could do with this.
Okay, so you want to.
That's what I meant by make a motion for a notice of violation.
I'll make a motion that we send them a notice of violation.
Okay, anybody want to second that?
Second,
That was who, because I can only see 4 people.
Clark.
Clark, we have a second by Commissioner. Aye.
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 All right, I think that's unanimous. Okay, IWD 2020-09, 176 Main Street, unpermitted storage of vehicles and such within upland review area.
Okay, same sort of thing. Now, this one has had a violation in the past, according to history. They had a violation back in 2014. Back in 2014 was before me, but they had an area behind the liquor store and the property next door. They're basically doing a tree service behind it. That had been cleared up, closed things out. I was looking at CO for, or a permit for the property in front. went out there and saw that, once again, they're using that whole back area. And now they're doing storage of vehicles. Once again, there's trucks and different things. At least they're not doing a tree cutting service.
I think
I
it
know, pardon?
I think it is. I drive there all the time. I think it is tree equipment.
It might be tree equipment, but last time they actually had the trees there too. And
Yeah,
they're
there's no logs, no wood like there was.
right. And when the zoning enforcement officer went to talk to him, they're like, well, I have all this property. I need to do something with it. It's like, but you can't. I mean, I have sent them letters to put up
Is
4
this the current
markers.
owner or the previous owner?
I believe it's the new owner. It's the one of the previous employees, I think, took it over. But they
know that-
but
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
whole
the
meeting-
records don't show it as the same owner, but I don't know how that's worked, but
Oh, there's
you can
probably a
see
perm-
they're storing
there's a
again, and
permit.
it's also flood zone back there.
So I have something to say about this. I was contacted by somebody because at one point and I had nothing in this capacity of wetlands, but because the owner there was nervous that, actually, Denise, I think I spoke to you about this, about the driveway next door, and they thought that they were going to get their parking lot cut off.
This is the one, yeah, you talked where he put a barrier up or something.
Barrier, but he ended up paving it, and I think it's still, the guy's not, so this guy was, all nervous about that happening, and it seemed to me, this is the odd thing about this, what shocked me about this one, this guy was so scared of what could happen to him by this change next door. You would think this guy would be, angel about this, not even think about messing up, as far as, the town goes. So I'm kind of shocked that this guy would be, I'm guessing he got talked into it, because this place, ever since I lived here for 15 years, somebody's always trying to do something with that land.
And you could see that I wrote a letter, and Donna it was up on the screen if you pan back down. I wrote him a letter back December 2014. And, there's a map, and we asked them, look, we could close this up. It would be good for you if you put 3 or 4 markers up. We even showed them where to put them so that this would keep people from going back there and doing what they're doing. And that
was in 2014.
2018, sorry.
What?
It was December 14th, 2018 was when we tried those 3 markers.
Oh, I'm sorry. They said 2014.
That was the original violation, was 2014.
Gotcha. Well, really, I guess my question is, what's the difference between sending a letter and then sending a notice of violation?
Notice of violation requires them to come in front of you. A letter, when I send a letter, I'm trying to have them talk with me and see what, explain to them what they're doing and try to get them to fix it without having to go to the commission. But when they neglect to respond back to me, the only way to do it is if it goes to NOV.
Again, my thought is on this, you probably hired an attorney, do the closing. He should have been able to know what he can and can't do here. Right? So he shouldn't be surprised at all.
And
well,
like
I could be wrong on that statement.
Our zoning enforcement officer went to talk to him, and he's just like, well, I have all this land. I need to make money.
Okay.
That's not a good reason.
So that was the first contact. I say just, I would not have a problem with someone making a motion to send the notice of violation.
Perfect.
So moved.
Bob,
So moved.
are you gonna do it?
Yep. I just did.
Oh.
Send
So
them a
hard.
notice of violation. I moved.
Okay. Anybody want to second that?
Second.
Second, was that Commissioner Gingrich again?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Ship the letter.
Got it.
Okay, or the notice. Now we are on remediation submissions. We have none. Application hearing determinations, none. Other, none. Deliberation session. Deliberation on completed hearings. The items from this agenda is determined by the commission. We didn't move anything to here yet, right? So we're on to bond release reduction reports.
Correct.
IWC 2018-11 on 104 Elm Street, Paul Duh bond release request.
Was out there and the work that was associated with the wetlands permit has been completed.
Move to release the bond.
Second it.
A second?
Second by Commissioner Jingles.
Second by Commissioner Gingrich. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Release the bond. Okay. I-07-0601, 154. Release request of remaining 10,000.
Same thing. It was, there was one item left for them to do per the IWC, or the, in the wetlands and it's completed. So
Move to release the bond.
Motion to release the bond. Need a
Second.
Second it.
second by Commissioner Stewart. Aye.
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 Motion passes. Release the bond. Okay, now we are going to time extensions. IWC 2012, 5-year extension requested.
Denise, are there any apparent violations on this property?
could you tell me what it is again? I guess I have the old one. What's the,
54 Garter. 54 Garter. It's a house, I believe.
It is, yeah. I don't think there are any. They've been working, they've been submitting things for their ROA. They just aren't ready to build yet. And their permit is up on, I think, November. So they wanted to.
and if I'm not mistaken, wasn't this the one that had to work on the historic or something because of Garter Road?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm familiar with that there's no issues with this one.
Yeah, I'll move to grant the extension.
A motion to grant the extension. We have a second?
Second. Hall.
Second by Commissioner Hall. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes unanimously. Moving right along. IWC agent activity reports. You want to
Want
run
me to
through those?
take over?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, agent approvals, IAA 2020-16, 296 Fan Hill Road, modification of existing deck. IAA 2020-17, 26 Blueberry Hill, installation of above ground pool. IAA 2020-18, 31 Northwood Road, installation of in-ground pool. IAA 2020-19, 574 Monroe Turnpike, a handicap ramp to the new entrance to the store. IAA 2020-20, 390 Monroe Turnpike is a reconfiguration of the drive-through to the double lane to a double lane drive-through. That's the McDonald's that we spoke about once before. Item 13, permitted uses as of right. IPU 2020-12.
Missed one. You missed the last approval, 68 Church Street.
Oh, I don't have it on mine, sorry. IAA 20.
I'll do it in. IAA 2020-21, 68 Church Street, in-ground pool.
Yep.
And you can go.
Okay. Permitted uses as of right. IPU 2020-12, 72 Twin Brook Terrace was emergency septic repair. IPU 2020-13, 94 Ridgedale Road, emergency septic repair. IPU 2020-14, 61 to 71 Hidden Knoll Circle, regrading for creation of a swale for drainage problems. IPU 2020-15, 303 Fan Hill Road, emergency septic repair. IPU 2020-16, 83 Hattertown Road, dredging of a farm pond, and this was work that was approved back in 2016 that they had not done.
And then then we have IPU 20-18-01, Department of Public Works, road repair, replacement, or general maintenance, delivery regulation, section 4.2C, expiration 3/28/2023. Now we're on enforcement deliberation, which doesn't look like there's anything. So now we're at general discussion. Let's do the minutes of July 22nd, 2020.
Oh, that went off. No.
Did you want correspondence?
No, we're on minutes. 2020. July 22nd, 2020, rather.
Oh, minutes, I'm sorry. I jumped ahead of things. Move to approve with some changes.
We have a motion to approve the minutes with some changes. Do we have a second?
Second, Paul.
Okay.
All right. Yes, Commissioner. So go ahead, Lois.
On the bottom of page 7, the last sentence before the last paragraph, Commissioner Spence noted the final approval letter notes the consolidation of all 3 lots. Would like to add that there was an appeal period after the approval letter was received, but that period had passed. That's the only addition. Everything else was great.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve the minutes with the change that Lois just mentioned. We have a second by Commissioner Hall. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes passed unanimously. Now, our regulation amendment committee.
Nothing from the committee.
Okay.
Right.
It looks like
Public
we have an
outreach
executive
committee?
order.
Public outreach committee? No. Okay.
Maybe one.
Correspondences, Solitude Lake Management.
We received information from somebody having to do with treating a lake in town for invasive weed. And I have the paperwork if anybody, I'm sure Donna still has it too. If anybody wanted to see it. It was just informational, really nothing we have to do anything with.
Okay.
Right, there's already a permit for it.
And then we have the executive order procedural change to permit for residential generators and propane tanks.
Yeah, you should have a copy of the order that was presented to us. We're no longer really reviewing generators and propane tanks.
Okay. That easy?
Well, if they're in the wetlands, I don't know.
This is an executive order from the town?
The first selectman.
Oh, okay. Did he
Where did
do
that
that?
come-
I have a copy of it.
I don't know if he
You
can
got
do
a
that.
copy of it?
I didn't get one.
I
I
don't
didn't
have a
see-
copy
Copy
of
of
it.
it?
Oh, we can get it in the next time.
I'll make sure you get it.
Okay, so now,
Yeah, I
You're
got the
done?
executive order and I wanted you guys to know.
okay, thank you. So now we're going to move to IWC 2020-0
Chairman?
for Cambridge for Independence. I'm going to, does anybody need to break? Bathroom, some water, anything, or just want to keep plugging along? Thumbs up, everybody.
Go forward.
5.
Keep going. Okay. It really hasn't been that long, but okay. Again, IWC 2020-03-64 Cambridge for Independent Site Development Administration. First thing that we're going to do is talk about the site walk, site visit. Does the commission, I vote, do all the commissioners want to do a site walk? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, that's everybody. I guess that's done. Is that good enough, Barbara?
She's on mute.
Wait,
There we go.
You can actually just, take a vote on it.
we kind of just did.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, does that work?
You
And then
want
you're
to-
going to, huh?
You want to schedule a date for it?
Well, that's what I figure let's get this out of the way. So if you want to brief us on the conditions and whatnot of the site walk. For scheduling it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Keith.
What we need to do to schedule it, we have to do, I think you had said, to make a public notice.
Right, so you can decide tonight among yourselves what date would be good. We'll take into account, when obviously the applicants, people are available, the interveners, et cetera. It will be considered a special meeting and noticed as such. So that shouldn't be a problem.
I'll need to, Barbara, would I need to put that in the newspaper then?
No.
Would I need to do a legal notice?
You need to notice it as you would notice a special meeting.
Okay, so I do need time to have it in the newspaper then.
Well, I think that you can put it on the town website, but we can talk about that
Okay.
afterwards.
So
Why
we
don't let's decide on a date that's good for everybody.
Well, what's the minimum lead time?
Well, you don't need much. I think you only, for the special meeting under FOI, you only need actually 24 hours to post it.
Okay, so we can go as soon as this weekend.
Well, I don't know if that works for everybody.
Well, no, I'm just saying, I just want to get a time frame.
Yeah, right. There's
part of the calendar. So first of all, what I'll start with is, I'll go through the commission and ask them first. Days and times that generally are, see what matches up. So Commissioner Spence, day and time of day that works for you, sidewalk.
Well, we have to decide, we have to do it specifically on a weekend or a weekday?
Any day. Oh, that's okay. Barbara, it could be any day of the week, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So we could,
Romano,
any day.
I might be able to expedite this a little bit. If you give me a minute, I might be able to make this a little simpler if you give me just a minute's worth of time.
Yep, as long as it's about the sidewalk only.
Absolutely, only about the sidewalk. So just so you know, next week is not going to be good for the applicant, but in general, any day would work. And the preference would be for after 4 p.m. If for some reason that doesn't work for the commissioners, we'll be flexible, but that would be our first choice. But next week is not good.
Okay. So, and with all this stuff with the, time for notice, I understand. Okay, so Mr. Spence, with that being said, what usually works for you?
Weekdays are usually fine with me. Weekends are a little bit more iffy. Labor Day weekend is definitely out, but other than that, I'm relatively flexible.
So your weekdays is after 4, okay?
Yes, timing wise is not a problem.
Commissioner Stewart.
Obviously, Monday's not good. And Wednesday's our next meeting, so I could do Tuesday or Thursday. Or
your Tuesday or Thursday, we're talking about
8th or 10th on after 4 is fine.
Okay, Commissioner Madison.
Yeah, I can work with that, what Jim said.
Okay, same. Commissioner Gingras.
Nothing's good for me. I don't get out of work till 6 p.m. 8th or 10th, I wouldn't be home until like 6:45.
So your preference is a weekend?
I mean, the only weekend problem right now is I only have this Saturday off. The next 3 weeks I'm working, both Saturday and Sundays. Unless you do it after 4 o'clock. I could do it after 4 o'clock on a Saturday or Sunday in the next 3 weekends.
Let me ask this of Donna and Barbara, whoever could best answer this, anybody else. But in the past, we've scheduled our own site walks. We would never really go all at the same time. There'd be more than one, sometimes 2 or 3 even separate times, so that it wasn't quote unquote a meeting. Are we kind of bound to hold it at just one time?
You can go at separate times, but it's still going to be a meeting. So
It's a meeting. It still has to be a notice.
2 of you go at one time and 3 of you go at another time. That's just going to be 2 separate meetings. So
we're still gonna have a notice though. Right?
Yeah.
For both. If we pick 2 days, we're gonna have a notice for both.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, considering that it's a large piece of property, I know what we're going to have to discuss next is how this is going to be conducted, because, you know, it's not just like going to visit somebody's residence. And so there kind of needs to be somewhat of a guide. I mean, it would be ideal if we could just pick one date, but I understand if that's not possible, it has to be, you know, 2 different dates. But yeah, we would have to notice it that way then, as 2 separate meetings.
Hold on. So Commissioner Gingrich, what was the Saturday that worked for you?
This Saturday's fine. I can go
This
anytime.
Saturday. They requested not till next week. This
Okay,
Saturday is the only day you have off?
No, I can do it the following Saturday, but it would be after, I would say 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. So, Attorney Finn, next Saturday, 2 o'clock, work for your client?
A week from this Saturday at 2 o'clock for everyone, or for just Mr.
No.
Gingras?
Mr. Gingras, and I may go with him so he's not alone.
Yes, we can accommodate a week from Saturday.
Could we give dates, please? Because it makes it too confusing otherwise.
Yeah, because that makes it sound like you're doing it the Labor Day weekend.
That is Labor Day weekend, yeah.
Yeah, the 5th, September 5th, Saturday, that's Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
If I may,
Is that okay, Commissioner Gingras?
Yeah, I can do it on Saturday.
Okay, you can do it. Kevin, you're gonna have something to say?
well, I was just going to say, if I may, if we were going to try to accommodate a Saturday for Commissioner Gingras, we could certainly accommodate this Saturday. I think he has the entire day off, and it's not a holiday weekend if he wanted to do that, rather than doing it over a holiday weekend.
I
Then
can do this.
Attorney Finn said the client would like a week. So I don't know if that.
Here's the problem, Chairman Romano, is that I would like to attend at least one of the site visits. So I don't think I need to attend both. And so if there's going to be definitely 2 site visits, one during the week of where Labor Day falls, I think we're good scheduling one of the 2 site visits for either this Saturday or next Saturday.
Okay, I think we're getting close. So let me just canvass Commissioner Hall. Commissioner Hall, what works for you?
He's on mute. You're muted.
DJ, you're muted.
I am unmuting. Okay. My time is flexible. After 4 any day can be good. Saturdays can be good.
Okay, so we have basically 2 dates to contend with, or actually I should say 3. Either Tuesday or Thursday, the 8th or 10th, okay? Or this Saturday at 2 and after 4, whenever on the 8th or 10th. We just pick one of the ones during the week and we have the Saturday. So if we want, it should be at least 2 people, right? on any day. So we shouldn't have one person by themselves. Is that correct?
Just, I don't mean to confuse things, Mr. Romano, but I know what comes into play here is whether there'll be discussions at both site visits. And if there are discussions at both site visits, I think that could be a problem. So I think we're going to have two separate site visits. I don't think there can be any discussion. And I know there's been some topic about a tour guide. And unless the tour is actually wrote, it means the same information is conveyed at each of those two site visits. Technically, there could be a problem. Now, I'll defer to Attorney Schellenberg on that, but I think the substance generally has to, if there's discussions, I think everyone has to be in attendance. If there are no discussions.
Since they're both public meetings, couldn't we record both sidewalks so that the discussions at either meeting could be shared amongst all the commissioners?
That could be, but I think also, I think the point of, I don't think there's much that needs to be discussed there. It's a matter of someone is not quite oriented. It's a massive piece of property. I think what needs to be spoken about is like, okay, I don't see this. I don't recognize this area. Or can you explain to me where this part of the plan is on the site? We wouldn't be talking about methodologies. We're going to be talking about, materials, things like that. It should just be about explaining where we are. Where are we now? Where is this on the plan going to be situated? Because it's not your typical lot. It's a massive, massive, expansive property. So when I say, I agree, there should be discussion about the application, only clarification as to what we're looking at. So I don't see why, if that's just a necessity for a commissioner or someone in the public, actually, who also open to, needs to position themselves on the plan and see, show me where this is going. That's just a clarification for someone's, eyes, I guess, if you want to put it that way. So I don't see that's a discussion. That's just.
Right, I agree. There shouldn't be any substantive discussions.
Yeah.
Only the clarifications as the chairman just described. So that shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, I think
unless people want to talk to each other about what a beautiful day it is and the birds they see flying by or something like that, that's fine.
the other possible way to do this, just to make sure we're not running in afoul of anything, is if possible, we could do like a map or a diagram, and in advance of the site visit, if any of the commissioners have looked over the application or are curious about where a particular feature is, they can ask that be shown on the map. Something like that. I don't mean to overcomplicate this, but we know that there are a lot of lawyers involved in this, and I am worried about, appeal issues and things of that nature. So if possible, maybe identify those areas that the commissioners want to make sure they see in advance, and we can make sure they're on the map and that they're part of this tour.
Like Attorney Finn, we want to see everything. So
of course,
we want to see the whole site. So really, it's just a matter of looking at the time. It's almost like where you have to do the visit to say what you can't see. Because if you're looking at everything on the piece of paper, everything's in front of us. Nothing that's hidden there. You know what I mean?
No,
we're looking at a two-dimensional plan.
You're going to have full access to the site. I just thought there may be we want to know where this particular vernal pool was or is or whatever. If that's something of interest, we'd want to show that on the map and make sure that's part of both tours, for example, rather than finding out at the second tour.
That clarification helps. We could discuss that, or we could have each commissioner could probably send an email if they have a specific thing that they want to see, so that we make sure that they get to.
Just in terms of the tour itself, what we were envisioning is, we had a very good tour with Chris Sullivan and some of the other representatives from the Southwest Conservation District. Denise has been to the site a couple times. We were basically planning on kind of preparing a path putting up some tape in areas to make sure that we have safety considerations in place, and really taking everyone on a guided tour similar to the same path we took as part of the last site walk. So that was our intention. We can almost kind of create like almost like a map you'd find at like an amusement park or something like that, to kind of focus on the different areas where we're going to be able to see the site in its entirety around the entire area, to kind of make sure that everyone has a good opportunity to kind of see what we're dealing with and what our proposal, how our proposal will take that into consideration.
You could also, Kevin, you could also take a site plan and take a marker and kind of draw roughly where we're going, so that it'll help orientate everybody. So just take the site plan, right? So that's another great idea.
We can do
back to the date, because we still didn't. So we're talking about this Saturday at 2 o'clock. There's one option. And next, and then the 8th, both equally good for a couple of the commissioners. So do you want to just pick the 8th or the 10th, so we just have two?
Mr. Chairman, if I may weigh in for the interveners.
Yep. Go ahead, Joel.
If we could, this Saturday would be great, or the 10th would be good. Either of those two.
So that's it. Everybody was flexible on the 8th and the 10th on the commission. So it's going to be this Saturday and the 10th. Is that good with everybody? What?
The 10th is after the meeting, though. We're aware of that.
Yeah. I think, there's a meeting on the 9th. We prefer to have these site walks conducted on the 8th, the Tuesday before. So the next time we're all together, we've all had the opportunity to kind of visit the site and see everything.
It's fresher on our minds at that point, too, rather than having to wait an extra 2 weeks before.
That's another good point. Another good point. Yeah. And Attorney Green, just so you know, we are scheduling this meeting to the best for our commissioners, and the rest of it's public. I know you have your status, but I think I agree that the 8th would be the better day.
That's fine, Mr. Chairman.
So, when do we need to know who's going on which day at this point? Barbara?
No, I mean, I don't think that's necessary unless there's a concern. We can always coordinate with the property owner, so the property owner knows at least who from the commission is coming. Obviously, it's still open to the public on either date. We can't control who might be coming from the public, but if you want to know,
commissioner could probably go on both days if you wanted to.
What'd you say?
And a commissioner, if he wanted to, or he or she wanted to, could probably go on both days as well. They wanted to come. They wanted the first one. They wanted to come back for the second one. It's up to them. Correct?
I mean, I don't think that's an issue.
All right, so I think as long as we got it covered. I think we got it covered. We have 2 dates and times. Let's say 4:30 for the Tuesday, the 8th. Because everybody said after 4. All right. So now what we're gonna what I'd like to do is have it's wrong. Holden from the Southwest Conservation District.
Wait a minute. Keith, can I stop everybody? Where are we meeting? That's a huge site.
Yeah, I need a little clarification on that for the notice.
So we would, when you first enter the property off of Cambridge Drive, there's a scale house, a small office. We'd like everyone to park down at the base there on the left-hand side when you enter the property. We'll all meet and convene. We'll review safety requirements, and we'll kind of talk through those issues, and then we'll start the tour.
Okay. So it's
Kevin,
what I'll do is I'll provide.
Hold on, one person at a time.
I'll provide a sketch to the commission that kind of maps out the parking area, the meeting area, and then the path that we would be proposing to take around the property.
Okay. We all good now?
Saturday the 20th.
Commissioner,
Kevin, I would also suggest that everybody wear long pants and preferably long sleeves, just that part of it does take you through the woods to see the vernal pools, and the terrain is certainly got growth.
Okay, so if I may clarify, so we're talking Saturday the 29th at 2 o'clock at the Gatehouse, or September 8th at 4:30 at the Gatehouse. Am I correct? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, great. So we are going to, again, from Southwest Conservation District, Sullivan, please address the commission and present us your findings.
Yep. Can everybody hear me all right?
Sounds good.
All right, perfect. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, town staff, and other attendees of the meeting. I appreciate taking the time tonight and giving me some time to talk a little bit about the report that I had written up and given to everybody. I don't have any slides or a presentation, and I also know that the hour is late, so I'm probably just going to walk through the executive summary and then take questions from any of the commissioners that they may have. And I just also wanted to make sure that even though I'm only planning on reading the executive summary, I just want to make sure that the entire report is actually considered part of the official record for this hearing. So before I go into the executive summary, I just want to talk briefly about my background and my experience. Before I came to the district, I was at Connecticut DEP in the Water Bureau for 11 years. I worked in the Water Bureau doing work on industrial remediation sites, watershed planning, aquatic toxicity and modeling efforts, and also on prioritization planning for water quality projects for the state. I also did a lot of work with partner groups, watershed associations, and my background education is a classically trained environmental scientist. I am not an engineer nor an attorney. So that's just some of my background. I have also done the online DEP wetland certification. I've been the executive director of the Southwest Conservation District for about a year, working with municipal staff in all of our service area, picking up projects and helping them with sediment erosion control issues, invasive species, and a ton of other environmental topics. So like I mentioned, my plan is just to read the executive summary for folks that maybe didn't read the entire report and then take some questions. So I will just start off and read that. It's only about a page and a half, so it shouldn't take too long. The Southwest Conservation District has reviewed the application materials for the property of 64 Cambridge Drive and 4 Independence Drive. This proposal focuses on reestablishing the watershed for some on-site wetlands. These wetlands have lost significant water recharge from the over-excavation of the quarry area on the property. This has disrupted the surface flows into the wetlands and probably groundwater flows as well. Proposed work on the site involves bringing in over 1.3 million cubic yards of fill material for the main quarry hole and pond. The proposal includes the use of several sediment traps and vegetated swales, along with other best management practices, BMPs. The selected sediment control implementations seem appropriate for the project, and in general, the district believes that the proposal takes advantage of opportunities for infiltration of stormwater. The sheer scale of this project and the proximity to drinking water source headwaters elevate the concern of potential water quality issues for the property and proposed application. The district is supportive of the goal to rehydrate the damaged on-site wetlands, wetland 2 and 3. Reconnecting the surface hydrology makes sense as a way to rehydrate, but there's no information in the proposal about how the groundwater flows and patterns will affect these same wetlands. Gaining an understanding of how groundwater will affect the wetlands targeted for rehydration is critical, as is protecting the groundwater quality that moves to the other on-site wetlands 1 and 4, as well as directly to the adjacent tributary to the West Branch Pequannock River. Without an understanding of groundwater at the site and based on the work proposed and its objectives, this proposal could be considered incomplete by the Commission in the opinion of the Southwest Conservation District. The district suggests that if the commission approves the proposal, that conditions are placed on the project. Some of these conditions include soil samples and a groundwater well network to ensure environmental conditions on the site. The groundwater wells will provide evidence of any potential leachate leaving the property via groundwater flows. The district also recommends that conservation easements be placed on the on-site wetlands and at least a 50-foot buffer for each water body. It would not make sense to rehydrate these wetlands just to impact them later by future developments. The district also believes that the pond in the deepest section of the current quarry qualifies as a water body per the town of Monroe wetland regulations. A recommendation is to require some mitigation within the West Branch Pequannock watershed in response to the proposed fill of this water body that is central to this proposal. The district also recommends that a certified hydrogeologist is hired for the project to determine groundwater regimes, flows, and patterns on the site, and to select the groundwater well locations as part of the monitoring network. The district has concerns about the frequency of random sampling of materials in the trucks coming onto the property, and also with word choices in the material acceptance manual. Current language would result in approximately 1 sample per every 200 trucks. The district also has concerns with the operation and maintenance manual and leniency of language, but not using the word shall in some clauses. One final recommendation is that an independent third party is hired to inspect the sediment and erosion control devices and implementations on the property. This inspector would be needed for the 10-year proposed timeframe of the construction project. The district would also recommend that this condition is added to inspect for compliance with the maintenance schedule for the stormwater system after the conclusion of the project. The district supports the general objective of rehydrating lost wetlands on the site. However, the details of how this is done and other ramifications to the hydrology and hydrogeology of the site require more information before moving forward with an approval. The Southwest Conservation District also believes that the recommended conditions for approval will make this the best possible proposal in terms of environmental and water quality protections. It is possible that additional information on the characteristics of the site produced from the applicant or from other interested parties could be valuable for review by the district. We would reserve the right to adjust opinions and recommendations of this report based on the emergence of any new information. So that's the executive summary. And I would just add to it that I feel like this is a pretty unique project, that it's not a typical development, as one of the stated objectives is actually to restore wetlands on site that were damaged from previous work. A lot of times it's protecting wetlands from projects and development. I think some other unique characteristics are that this is in a very high quality environmental area with drinking water source waters in the vicinity, and preserved open space from the state and aquarian water nearby. So that's kind of where I'd have to say is just an opening. I know that the report was distributed to staff and commissioners, the intervener, and the applicant and their staff as well. So, Mr. Chairman, if there's specific questions from the commissioners, I'd be glad to try to answer those at this time.
Okay, I will go down the list again with one question at a time, commissioners. I'll start again with Commissioner Spence. You have a question for Mr. Sullivan? You're muted.
Sorry, I find it helps with other people's feedback if I'm muted. I don't have any particular questions except that the opinions of the professionals that you consulted are, except for the report from Dr. Randall, everybody else is done by reference, and that there's no particular reports from these individual people. Am I correct?
So Dr. Steinen's report was attached as appendix. Hold on, I'll give you the number.
Yeah, I see he gave a report of his own, but
Appendix 2. Cynthia Rabinowitz did not give a formal report. I included some of her comments specifically in what I wrote up. And then Mr. Allen did include a report, and it should be starting on page 29, Appendix 3. He was mostly focused on the soils of the property.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that to make sure I wasn't missing anything.
Sure thing.
Thank you very much. I found this to be a very interesting and informative report. Thank you very much for your thoroughness.
Sure, not a problem. Glad to help.
Thank you. Commissioner Stewart.
Chris, on page 14 of your report, you talk about the northern area of the project and it being excessively elevated in its proposal. Could you talk more about that?
Yes, so that's the area where the proposal is to go to the maximum of 483 feet. That's the section you're referring to?
Yes.
Yep. So in my opinion, that's going to raise up the final property a lot higher than I believe it would need to be done. The rebuilding the watershed area doesn't need to be that high of an elevation. It's actually significantly higher than the existing wetlands nearby in the northeast corner. And I believe that a lower elevation would, first of all, require less fill on the property, but a lower elevation would still generate enough surface flow and reestablish that watershed to go into the wetlands that have been damaged by the previous owners. Is there other specific comments that you would like to have on that? I mean, I suggested a reduction of approximately 25 feet would still be sufficient to recreate the wetlands watershed in that area.
No, that's great. Thank you. Also, the applicant also discussed putting a liner on the slopes of the fill area. Were you aware of that? And what's your opinion about that?
I am aware of that, and I understand the purpose is to make sure that surface waters in the newly reestablished watershed would not infiltrate below the existing watersheds. And I think that this is part of the reason that some more groundwater understanding is needed at the site. The surface flows could infiltrate, and that would, having the liner would direct any groundwater infiltration towards the existing wetlands, but I'm not sure if that's actually needed, to be honest, but I think some more information about the existing groundwater in that area would help with determining the need for that liner. There could be other ramifications that occur from putting that liner in because obviously that wasn't there in the previous conditions for the site.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Mastrocco.
I don't have any questions, but for what we were just talking about, maybe instead of using some type of rubber or plastic material, maybe clay, something that was that's been used before, right, to keep ponds from holding water. A layer of clay or some natural material.
Yeah, I mean, if the objective is to make sure that any infiltrated surface water precipitation is to the wetlands, you would need something that is basically creating an aquitard at that point. So I'm not an engineer. I'm not going to tell you how to design that specifically, but something like that could work. The purpose would be to direct water to those wetlands.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gingrich.
No questions at this time.
Commissioner Hall. You're on mute. DJ, you're on mute.
Just asking maybe for a little bit of a clarification. You mentioned that the deepest section of the quarry qualifies as a water body, and then you said a recommendation is to require some mitigation within the West Branch Peconic watershed. Can you just give us a quick idea of what you're talking about there?
So my opinion is that pond in the deepest part of the quarry is a water course per your regs, and so filling it in is filling a wetland. And so I would suggest putting a condition of some sort of enhancement or improvement within the watershed in another location. I'm not familiar enough with the watershed. I don't live in your town, so I wouldn't have a suggestion of a location, but in my mind, there's a water body that will be a loss when that hole is filled in because it's groundwater fed, and some of the aerial pictures from earlier this year or last year show it being very significantly full of water, and we know that the water has been pumped out of there and that it refills on its own. It's not just precipitation driven.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So next, do we? Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Spence.
I did think of one more that I wanted to ask. In phase one, the rehydration of the wetlands by pumping water from a basin, I'm going to ask about more clarification from that. Does this concern you at all about the quality of the water that's being pumped from whatever the source is going to be through the perforated pipe before the project is actually finished?
That's for the wetland one is the one in the southwest corner, right? I'm sorry, just getting my map out. Yeah.
Yeah, but, I think the pipe is supposed to be along wetland 2, which is the one in the northeast corner.
Oh, right. Am I concerned about that?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that knowing the quality of the water going into the wetlands is a critical thing to understand. And I think that a big issue as the work is being done is the turbidity of any water that's being moved, because there's a lot of, as construction is done and fill is put in. So you could put sedimentation device, maybe some sort of like a sock or a filter to prevent high turbid waters from going into the wetlands through the pumping. So that would be one suggestion. But that wasn't something that jumped out at me, to be honest.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other commissioner have another second round of questions for Mr. Paul? Ross?
Will we have a chance to, part of this tour, will we be going down to the lowest part where, you know, the water body is?
That's Ross. It's not a question for Mr. Sullivan, but we could certainly ask, Kevin to respond.
Where are you, Kevin?
I'm here. Yeah, we could certainly include
Kevin,
that.
you know what? Kevin, state your name and position.
Sure.
For the record, please.
Sure. Sorry. For the record, my name's Kevin Soley with Soley Engineering on behalf of the applicant. Yes, we can incorporate that as part of the tour. That'll likely need to be, vehicular rather than on foot, just because of safety concerns and where it is. But yeah, we can definitely get down to that area as well.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I just add a point to that?
Sure.
This is Chris Sullivan. This is Chris Sullivan. When we did our site walk, they were very accommodating, and Dr. Steinen was down at the deepest parts of that quarry, so it's possible to be done. So I just wanted to add that in, that it was something we were able to do.
Thank you. Barbara, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Does anybody else have the opportunity to ask Chris questions besides the commissioners?
I think it's appropriate to allow others to ask questions, the applicant and the intervener.
Okay, let's start with the applicant. Do the applicants have any questions for Mr. Sullivan?
Kevin Soley, Soley Engineering, for the record, on behalf of the applicant. We actually, as we've said from the beginning, we were actually really excited and thrilled to see the Southwest Conservation District report. We were excited that they actually shared our same global recommendations that rehydration was the most optimal way to really restore the site. So we were appreciative of that. I will say that we've actually engaged hydrogeologists to assist with a lot of the recommendations that he provided in their report. And we will be providing additional analysis regarding some of those requests. We've been very anxious this whole time to kind of receive, we've been anxious for this report. We obviously have to receive some staff comments from Denise and from Scott. We wanted to hear all the comments from the interveners, professionals, and from the commission, because we're anxious to resubmit some revised information that kind of captures all of these recommendations, so we can really put forward the best proposal that we believe that the property really warrants and deserves. So I want to thank Chris and all of his professionals for putting in the time and effort, giving us such a comprehensive report, because it did provide a lot of great insight. And we are, in the process of preparing some responses for them. I will ask Chris one question, regarding the characterization of the pond as a water course. generally, it's been our experience that projects that are actively under construction, areas wouldn't necessarily be identified in that manner if there's an active ongoing construction operation. So we've had issues where, you know, you may have a sedimentation basin that receives rainwater, you know, receives sediment. You may have almost a wetland, wetland plants or things like that grow just because of the nature of the basin itself, but that doesn't actually become a wetland because it's in an active construction site. In an instance like this, when we have a property that's kind of been under construction through another permit, would that take into consideration that identification of that as a watercourse?
In my opinion, I think the big difference is the examples that you just gave would be from, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, through you, if I may respond, just to be professional. Those examples would be from like surface flows or precipitation events, whereas I think the difference in this hole in the quarry is that it's groundwater filling. And so that's a little bit different. I mean, a groundwater spring is going to create a water body anywhere. I mean, the groundwater feeds into streams and ponds and creates those water bodies and possibly creates vernal pools in some areas. So I think that's the difference in my opinion, is that this section is being fed by groundwater springs coming up through the bottom, not just surface runoff collecting in a low point on the site.
But if you were digging a foundation for a building and that foundation reached below the water table, so then you then have a groundwater fed hole, which was then being continuously pumped out to actually pour that foundation, then would that also be considered a water course?
Well, I mean, I would hope that my house was not being built in a area like that below the water table with my basement, just as a comment. But I mean, I think that groundwater fed water bodies, you know, I think that, sorry, I don't know if that was me. I think that makes a water course because it's a natural flowing system at that point. And, you know, if the area has been altered by construction, then that has created a new system in that area. I mean, that would just be my response, in my opinion.
Is there any other questions from the applicant for Mr. Sullivan?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, just one quick question. I also, Mr. Sullivan, I really appreciate the detail of your report. I'm sorry, Mr. Romano, sorry.
State your name for the record.
Yes, sir. I'm Steve Finn on behalf of the applicant. Again, a wonderful report. Really appreciate all the comments. I'm back to this pond just real quick. In terms of the mitigation, I know you indicate you're not familiar with the area but can you give us an idea? I mean, it seems to me that the quality of that water course is relatively low given how it was the result of construction. And to the extent that we are going to try to do some mitigation, I know I'm pressing you, but can you give us, are we talking about an area that's about the same square footage of that? Is that what you're thinking, or?
I mean, the same square footage would be gigantic, right? Because you have a gigantic hole at your property. And through you again, Mr. Chairman, sorry. So I don't have a concrete suggestion. I could think about that more. And in reality, I think that it's got to be something a little bit at the discretion of the commission because, like I said, I'm not super familiar with the area. Maybe there's a project that is known in the town that could benefit from enhancement, and that would be perfect in this situation. I doubt that there's something the same square footage as the highlighted area in that quarry because it's so big. But some sort of mitigation I think would be appropriate. You know, one, just because that I do believe that would be considered a water course per the town's wetland regs.
Okay. Right, and I think your report noted that there is some mitigation that the applicant volunteered already on the property that's not required. Is that correct? Did you note that? There's a portion on the property where the applicant is offering to do mitigation that was caused by some other on an adjacent property.
That's the I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, through you, that's the 675 square foot in the proposal? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I know it's small, but it is at least some mitigation that the applicant volunteered to provide. I think your report noted that, I think.
Yeah, I believe that I mentioned that at some point.
Thank you.
For the record, again, Kevin Soley, just real quick, again, while we do, we do think that for active construction sites, when you excavate down and expose groundwater, that doesn't necessarily immediately become a water course. That being said, we're certainly happy to look at and evaluate other ways we can create additional enhancements, whether it be through the implementation of some of our stormwater basins, which I think was also identified in some of the recommendations, especially in the southeast corner of the site. We can kind of look to create a little bit more of a habitat there, and we're happy to work on some ideas and some suggestions on how to kind of address this particular comment. So again, we appreciate the time and thought put into it.
Anything else from the applicant, Mr. Sullivan? Good. Okay, I will open it up to the intervener, Attorney Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Joel Green, representing the intervener, Peter Metropolis Trustee. Good evening, Mr. Sullivan. With me tonight is Evan Glass of Alta and George Logan of Rima Ecological and Dave Bjorkland of Bath Bjorkland Engineers. I think we have, I guess I should comment, and I don't really want to get into a debate as to, the issue of the water course, and we appreciate your conclusion that it is a water course because, and for the benefit of the commission, it falls so squarely within the definition in the regulations in that contemplates a pond, and certainly it's been there for many years, and the regulations specifically contemplate that an artificially created pond constitutes a water course, and certainly it meets the definition really squarely. But we will get into that another evening. I think our consultants have a few questions, and I think they generally spring from concern that you raised regarding the quality of water and the turbidity. And I think I'll turn it over to them, and I don't know whether George or Evan who wants to go first. George?
I'll defer to George.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I'll ask Mr. Logan to comment.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. George Logan, for the record.
Mr. Logan, state your name for the record, please.
Yes, George Logan, Rima Ecological Services. There's a lot of questions that I might have that will probably come on later this evening or maybe at another time. But as I'm listening to Mr. Sullivan, by the way, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan, for your report. That was definitely very informative, and I have benefited from Mr. Stein's reports in the past. I kind of missed them, so I was glad to see one again. Regarding the pond, it is my understanding two things: that the pond is pumped down on the weekends. Are you familiar with that? When you were out there, did you see any evidence of pumping?
Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Sullivan. Yes.
Yeah, we actually asked about that fact, and there was a pump with a line running out from that area. It wasn't running while we were there. I don't know if there's a schedule of when it runs, but there was a generator and a pump at the basin, and a line running up to I believe it's the town of Monroe has a basin at the top northwest corner, and that's where the line came out. The water levels were fairly low when we were there, but as I noted earlier, in some of the aerials from not that long ago, it's pretty much completely filled to the top.
Well, we'll probably see it at one of the meetings, but at the time that you were there, how deep do you think the water was?
A couple feet at the bottom. I didn't actually go down into the bottom. Only Dr. Steinen went down all the way, but it was, there was a couple feet of water there.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that we have heard from the applicant is that during the ramping up of the development and the restoration of the watershed to Wetland 2, that some water, perhaps the water from this pond, would be pumped to sort of like a level spreader at the top of the existing watershed. The watershed is being developed to attempt to rehydrate this wetland in the short term. I don't necessarily have an objection to that. My only question is, would that be something that one has to look and balance of, like you suggested, a geohydrologist kind of looking at the conditions that are out there and coming up with some kind of an understanding of what the actual hydrologic regime was to that wetland, what the component of surface runoff, say, through the watershed versus shallow groundwater flow. Because, if a geohydrologist determines that most of the water that used to come to this wetland happened, like you said, hitting an aquitard or shallow groundwater flow, the quality of that water, or the chemical constituents, if you will, of that particular water feeding the wetland, perhaps would be different from what we could be putting in the wetland during the short term, which would only be surface and then possibly, some infiltration. Is that a concern that you might have? That might be a little premature to conclude that that will be beneficial before a geohydrologist looks at the entire package?
It's, as I mentioned to Commissioner Spence, it's not a piece that jumped out at me as I went through the report. I mean, obviously I wouldn't want water to being pumped if the pH was significantly different or there were other constituencies in the water, but that can be monitored as it's being done. So there are solutions that can be implemented to protect that, but it wasn't a thing that really jumped out at me. But I think that being protective of that water quality is important. But then also understanding where that water may go after it gets to the wetland. And that's where the hydrogeology piece comes in.
Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Thank you.
Evan, Mr. Glass, through you, Mr. Chair, I think that Evan Glass of Alta may have some questions as well.
Of course.
Okay, good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is, for the record, Evan Glass for the intervener. I'm with Alta Environmental Corporation from Colchester, Connecticut. So through the commission, Chris, I'll ask you if you can discuss your degree of concern for the quality of the fill that's already been brought to the site, and I believe an enormous amount has already been brought to the site, and the amount that's proposed to be brought to the site, as it may potentially affect the quality of the wetlands, the streams in the area, and as they flow to the drinking water supply reservoir, given that this fill is clean fill and the clean fill is a subset of solid waste.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think that obviously it's critically important to be aware of what sort of material is being put into the site and has been in the site. And I believe I mentioned that same fact to Mr. Soley when we were on the site, that it matters what goes into the hole in terms of protecting the rest of the site and the water courses nearby. Now, that's also why I suggest putting in the groundwater wells and taking soil samples and soil borings on the property to get a better understanding of what's happened on the site in the past, but also to be aware of what happens on the site in the future and moving forward, because those groundwater wells will detect any sort of leachate that is leaving the property towards the wetlands or towards the nearby water course. And so that would be a way to be protecting those areas and be aware of any sort of issues that develop from what has been put on the site already or anything that goes into the site in the future.
I have a follow-up question, if that's permissible.
Of course.
Chris, can you give a little discussion, provide a little discussion on the amount of effort that the application indicates is appropriate for characterizing the quality of the fill in terms of number of samples per cubic yards or number of truckloads, and whether it's even close to what you think is protective. And then as the separate question, well, I'll let you answer that one first, then I have one more.
All right, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman. I do believe that as proposed, the sampling rate of the material coming in is low. I mentioned that in the executive summary that when I calculated it out for the cubic yards per sample, that it's basically one sampling per every 200 trucks. And so 200 trucks seems like a lot, and they could be coming from different locations. And in theory, you could miss entire areas of facilities and sources of the fill if you sample the first truck and then the 201st truck only. So I do recommend that the sampling rate increases to a more frequency to just have a better protection of the material that's coming onto the site.
Through the commission, Chris, you mentioned that monitoring wells should be placed and monitored, and I think that's a good idea. But as you know, that is going to provide information after the fact. If contaminated material, if inappropriate material has been brought to the site, if it leaches into the water, it's already and it's detected in monitoring wells, that's going to be after many thousands of cubic yards of material have gotten in there. And what can you provide some information on whether you think it would be possible to find that contaminated material and remove it after it's been detected in monitoring wells?
Well, through you, Mr. Chairman, I think that could be done based on the size of the property and the scale of the work. And it would also depend on the frequency of the monitoring of those wells and how those are dispersed along the property borders and edges of the boundary of the property. So you can narrow down a groundwater plume by finding that some wells in the network would not have any results for a theoretical constituent of contamination, which would narrow down where the plume is emanating from on the property, and then you could backtrack to any areas that may need to be excavated. That doesn't mean that it's easy. That doesn't mean that it would not be potentially expensive to remove anything that is creating leachate, but technically possible, I believe that it is. And I hope that answers your question, Mr. Glass.
Yes, thank you.
Good. Are you done? You have any more questions?
Yeah, just briefly.
Well, I guess I.
Go ahead, Mr. Glass.
Yeah, Evan Glass for the record, Alt Environmental Corporation. I guess what you're saying is that if inappropriate material was inferred to be present due to the monitoring results, then you would expect that it would be excavated, found, and removed from the site and handled appropriately.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think that's part of the purpose of having the groundwater wells is as a check on things that are coming off of the property And I think that it is important due to the proximity of drinking water supply, watershed, and the headwaters going into the west branch of the Pequannock, to be, extra cautious about what's happening at the property. So assuming that this was happening while the property is still being filled, there is going to be material or equipment to move soils around. So some of the staging costs and timing would be lessened because that equipment would already be on site. But I would hope that if the wells came back with contaminants above criteria and showing evidence that there is things leaving the property, that yes, the site would be remediated.
Thank you.
All right. Attorney Green, do you have any other?
Yeah, just briefly, and I'm not sure whether this was covered, but referencing the pumping of what we've referred to as the pond on the site. Mr. Sullivan, do you have concerns about that continuing, that conduct of pumping the pond going forward, and whether that should continue or not?
So when we were there, I know that the pump, it looked like it went into a sediment trap in that the town of Monroe basin on that northwest corner. I don't know the volumes that are coming out of there. I don't have a lot of concern, just to be honest. I don't know what's in that water, but if it's just coming up from the groundwater below the property, I would suspect that there probably isn't any significant contamination in that water, but no, it's not something that would be the highest priority concern for me, if that answers your question.
I guess the only comment I would make is that it is a water course under the regulations, and that conduct is apparently not permitted. There's no permit to drain the water course, so I guess I would just throw that out. So with that, I don't have any. I'm sorry. It looks like Mr. Glass has another question. If the chairman will indulge us.
Yes.
Glass, go ahead. Say your name again for the record.
For the record, Evan Glass, Salt Environmental, for the intervener. It's my same question regarding the fill to be brought to the site as pertains to the fill that has already been brought to the site. Chris, do you think that fill should be characterized and monitored to assess whether the fill that's already brought to the site is a problem at all?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think that's part of the reason that I suggest taking soil borings now to get a handle of what's actually there currently. And I would also, putting in the groundwater wells earlier in the project or soon would also start to give a better picture of what's already been done on the site.
Thank you.
I see Mr. Logan have a question too.
Yes, hopefully this is my last question. Again, George Logan, Rima Ecological Services. So, Mr. Sullivan, I want you to see if you can follow my train of thought, which I've been kind of thinking of as we've been speaking. So, impacts due to the altered hydrology have occurred, but they're also now ongoing as we presently speak, and they will be ongoing for several more months, years, as this plan is being developed, until the plan is finally fully developed. But even then, there is really no guarantee that the hydrology of this wetland, which had developed over perhaps hundreds of years, if not more, will be the same or will be similar. So the impacts that are occurring now and will occur in the future, which are ongoing, will change the character of the wetland, apart from just its hydrology. It will, I believe, have adverse effects on the wetland vegetative community, for instance. It will adversely also, in connection, impact the wildlife community, apart from just the vernal pool species that we're all aware of. It will likely affect its chemistry, the availability of macronutrients, the availability of micronutrients. Like you mentioned before, it could affect pH, which is highly likely. And all this will have what I believe is potentially a cascade effect that will alter the ecological integrity of this wetland once and for all. So what we might get will not look or function the same like it is today, and we will have some kind of a loss. And I think we may not have certain things reversible. So we'll end up with some long-term irreversible impacts. So in thinking of that, do you think that it might be a good idea that the applicant mitigate for the ongoing wetland functions and values that are being altered, that are being minimized, or will possibly be lost forever? If for the foreseeable, I'm talking about these foreseeable irreversible losses, some kind of mitigation. For instance, if this was going before the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, theoretically, for loss of hydrology, for filling, for some kind of an impact, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, as part of their mitigation program, which is now morphed into an in lieu fee program, will probably levy several $100,000 to put towards restoration and enhancement of wetlands within the watershed or within the town. So that's one of my main concerns, is that perhaps we're losing focus that there are going to be irreversible loss of functions and values no matter what we do. They're happening right now. They will be happening for the foreseeable future. They've happened in the past, and we'll probably not end up getting the same wetland functions that we've had before. So based on that, shouldn't there also be some kind of mitigation put as part of the application to account for that loss?
Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I believe that could be considered by the commission. You know, it's hard to know what's going to happen with the attempts to rehydrate the wetlands in the northeast corner of the property and what those outcomes will be. I believe that it's good to see what does happen first. And I know that just looking at the 2020 surveys and then the 2014 surveys, that have definitely been losses of wetland there because there's no water there anymore. Now, if those do become rehydrated from this work, then I believe that would also tone for part of that loss. But if the commission did decide to ask for further mitigation, I believe that could be within their purview.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, Kevin Solar, Solar Engineering. I have to say I'm a little surprised to hear discussions about possible future impacts when there's absolutely no evidence that any of those impacts have taken place or will be results of this work. And frankly, you know, I think that's a little bit of a stretch and kind of inappropriate for someone to be talking about mitigating things that haven't taken place yet. And I think, you know, I want to, again, Mr. Sullivan and his experts did a comprehensive review and didn't come up with any phantom future impacts, which have not yet been proven. So I don't necessarily appreciate the nature of those comments, because I don't think it's fair to the applicant or the application itself and what we're proposing. You know,
I think, Mr. Chairman, if I just may respond briefly, and I don't think this is necessarily the time or place, but I think it's fair to say,
for the record again, Attorney Green.
Of course, yes, Joel Green, representing the intervener. I think it's fair to say that the report by Mr. Sullivan and his peers and information before the commission indicates that there is a fair amount of investigation and assessment still to be done. And these issues can certainly be visited by the commission later, but certainly the question is a fair one at this point, particularly based on Mr. Sullivan's report.
You're muted, Chairman. Still muted.
Mr. Chairman, we can't hear you at the moment, but I know
We
there's
can't hear
Kevin.
you all.
Sorry, damn Great Dane won't stop barking. I'm sorry, Kevin, did you have something to respond to that?
Well, no, I think
You were done.
every one of Mr. Logan's potential concerns can be addressed through measures to be undertaken as part of the project. And I think we've maintained from the beginning that we're willing to do, operate within certain parameters to ensure that these potential future phantom impacts can be avoided.
Well, so we can finish up with Mr. Sullivan. Let's go to Mr. Glass. You have another question?
Yes, thank you. For the record, Evan Glass, Alt Environmental, for the intervener. Chris, can you let us know how much data you had available to you regarding the sources of the material that have already come onto the site and the chemical testing of that material?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So I basically had the application as it was received by the commission. I did not review records of materials that had come onto the property prior to or during the previous ownership or anything that happened prior to the application coming in. So I'm not in a position to really comment on the existence of those records or what's in them because I did not review them.
Thank you. Anything else?
So, just to clarify, if I can.
For the record,
for
the record, Kevin
Hold
Soley.
on, Kevin, let's let Evan clarify finish his question.
Yeah, so Evan Glass, Alt Environmental, for the intervener. Just clarifying that you did not have any information on the sources of material that's already been brought to the site, and you didn't see any chemical testing data for that material.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I did not see those materials, but I did receive an email offer to come into the office and go through a hard copy file cabinet. I did not take up that offer to review those files.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, Attorney Green, any other questions for Mr. Sullivan from your side?
I don't believe we have any further questions at this moment. I did, obviously we have submitted the letters from Mr. Glass and Mr. Logan to the commission. I presume that we're going to take those matters up, and I did forward them to Mr. Sullivan for his reference, and I know that I think he can be of assistance to the commission in assessing the requests for information that we did submit to the commission, and I'll just offer that comment. And I want to thank the chairman for your patience.
Thank you, and you're welcome. From the applicant, any further questions for Christopher Sullivan?
No, I don't believe we have any further questions. Again, and thank you, Chris, for just clarifying. We did reach out to Chris, and we did offer to have him come in and review the environmental due diligence that was completed prior to the acquisition of the property. In addition to, we have maintained from the beginning that since the property has changed hands, they have followed the procedures to require certifications for material that brought in. There are filing cabinets full of that documentation, and we also offered that to Chris for him to review that material if he was so inclined. So I wanted to, thank you for offering that for the record. I want to reiterate that because, again, we've been maintaining, we're trying to provide everything that we can to ensure this commission has confidence in the applicant and our application, because we do feel it's the best solution for the property. And to the intervener, again, thank you. We did receive those comment letters. We are, as I indicated, we have engaged a hydrogeologist. We are working on responses to all the comments from staff, from the commission, from the recommendations from the district, and also we will be providing some responses to some of the comments raised by the interveners. I would simply like to point out that, we would again encourage and please request to make sure that you guys do provide a comprehensive review of information. I believe the letter provided by Mr. Logan made an allegation that the contributing watershed hasn't changed since 2014. And in fact, the memo.
Kevin, let me interrupt you for a second. I'm sorry, but I do want to make sure that we finish with Mr. Sullivan tonight. So I want to finish that so that hopefully he doesn't have to come back and spend time with us again. So my question, Barbara.
I'm enjoying it so much, though, Mr. Chairman.
We'll get back, Kevin. I'll sure that, you know what I mean? We closed the case here for Mr. Sullivan. Barbara, my question for you is: does the public get a chance to question Mr. Sullivan?
I mean, that's in the discretion. If the chair would like to open it up, you can do that. The other issue I want to make sure is just discussed tonight is I know there were recommendations that Mr. Sullivan had about additional experts. So the commission should decide whether it wants any additional experts. In other words, third-party experts or not.
Okay.
And under the regulations, I believe that is something that the applicant needs to cover the expense of. That's in the commission's discretion.
Again, just to we want to finish up the evening and complete comments and questions about this report. So I will hopefully quickly ask if there's any public questions from the public regarding the report from the Southwest Conservation District. So if we can unmute.
Kevin, it's Arnold Karp, actually the property owner. Bill Kenny, who is our soil scientist, had a conflict this evening. He does have a different interpretation of what is a water course and what is active construction than Mr. Sullivan. So we might need to get Mr. Sullivan back to at least listen to our soil scientist, who has a different interpretation of, is that really a water course or is it just water that is formed during construction?
Okay, Mr. Karp, I'm sure that this hearing is still going to be open until after our site walk, so there's plenty of time if we have to address that. So thank you. And is anybody in the public, anybody here that would like to ask Mr. Sullivan any questions regarding this report? Who is not a commissioner or a presenter or intervener, to clarify. You hear something? So I guess that's a no. All right, so now what do we do next?
I need to read the exhibits if we're ending for the evening, or
yeah, we're probably wrapping it up. I don't think there's at this hour we're ready to start. We're probably best to pick up discussion after the sidewalk. So
okay.
Donna, yeah, you
Okay, so currently Exhibit 1 is intervention notification by Joel Green. The document was dated May 27th, 2020. Exhibit 2 was notification to Aquarian Water Company by Chris Pawlowski, Solely Engineering, dated June 3rd. Exhibit 3 was notification to the State Health Department by Chris Pawlowski, Solely Engineering, dated June 3rd. Exhibit 4 were a map set 8-sheet plan titled Proposed Site Development by Solely Engineering. The document was dated May 25th with a revision date P&Z submission of June 3rd. Exhibit number 5 is a cover letter regarding revisions and inclusion of public hearing fee and mail receipts to abutters by Solely Engineering. Exhibit 6 is a letter to Southwest Conservation request for an independent review by Lois Spence. Exhibit 7 was the first review comments by the town engineer. Exhibit 8 were first review comments by the inland wetland agent. Exhibit 9 is a public comment letter against the application by Jacob Axel, Axel Plastics, document dated June 23rd, 2020. Exhibit 10 was a letter to Attorney Green denying a site walk by Attorney Finn, document dated July 29th, 2020. Exhibit 11 was a letter to the Inland Wetland Chair and Commission regarding denial of the site visit by Attorney Joel Green. The document was dated August 5th, 2020. Exhibit 12 is independent review report of 64 Cambridge Drive for Independence application by Southwest Conservation. The document was dated August 2020. Exhibit 13 is a letter to the Inland Wetland Commission, the reason being the preliminary application review of 64 Cambridge and 4 Independence Drive by George Logan of REMA Ecological Services. The document was dated August 25th. And Exhibit 14 was a letter to the Inland Wetland Commission, and the reason was preliminary questions regarding solid waste and DEP matters by Evan Glass, president of Alta Environmental Corporation, and that was August 25th. And that's all for now.
Great, thank you. All right, so I think we've done a great job getting everybody their time to speak and ask questions. I guess one more time before we bid farewell to Mr. Sullivan. There's all good. All right. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing again, I know you're anxious to end the meeting, but I do think that before ending the meeting tonight, it would be a good idea for the commission to decide if it is interested in retaining additional consultants or not per Mr. Sullivan's report. That's totally within the discretion of the commission, but.
Thank you, Barbara, for reminding me. Does any commissioner have any additional requests for third-party information?
I think it's pretty important we determine whether that excavated area is a wetlands. So I would recommend we hire a soil scientist to come up with their opinion, independent opinion on that.
Okay. Does any other, well, what do we do about that? Do we vote on that?
Yes.
Okay, do you like?
I'd make a motion to that effect.
We have a motion from Commissioner Stewart to have a third-party independent soil scientist identify the body of water on the subject property. Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Spence. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the motion passes unanimously. Is there any other comments or requests for, I'm sorry, Barbara, that was one. What was the other comment you had made?
I believe under the regulations, that is something that the commission can require the applicant to cover the expense of.
We're still not sure what they do, what we do with that. We have to request it, or?
No, I mean, I think the commission can, that's within the discretion of the commission to decide under your regulations, I believe, that that's something that the applicant pays for. So you can make that part of your, you can amend the motion to include that.
Okay, I'm going to amend my motion to include the requirement that the applicant pay for the professional services.
Okay, amendment to the application, second to that amended application, motion rather.
I'll second it. As per
I
our
got my
regulations.
Spence. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Mr.
Was there
Chairman,
anything
if I
else?
may,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes. Say your name.
pursuant to section 7.6H of your inland regulations, it provides in 7.6 that at the discretion of the commission, or when the proposed activity involves a significant activity, additional information based on the nature and anticipated effects of the activity, including but not limited to the following, may be required. And in H, that specifically includes analysis of chemical or physical characteristics of any fill material. The applicant may be required to describe any materials to be deposited on the affected property in terms of volume, composition, potential contaminants, as revealed by laboratory analysis, and the possibility of erosion or leaching from deposited materials. In addition, 7.5K says that the commission can obtain any information it deems necessary to the understanding of what the applicant is proposing. And I think it would be a benefit to the commission to ask Mr. Sullivan while he's here, the specific information that he referenced in his report that he recommended. And as I understand it, that is water quality monitoring and test holes. And I would urge the commission to fashion a motion and to consult with Mr. Sullivan in fashioning a motion that incorporates the information that the at Southwest deemed important and appropriate for this commission to request. And certainly that can be done on the commission's motion at the expense of the applicant.
Okay. Any of the commissioners want to address this?
I would like to first ask the applicant if this is something that they are happy to do for us. It could be that we don't need to require something if they're willing to offer it.
Well, I will defer to Steve Finn for the record. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I'll defer to Kevin on this, but I do want to point out a distinction that, again, this is an application to restore. This is not an application to, this is to remediate violations that this commission found existed even well prior to my clients taking ownership of the property. And so as we talked about a couple of hearings ago, the property is basically static at this point. There's nothing really going on there from what I understand. And so I think Mr. Sullivan's report, and again, he'll correct me if I'm wrong, talks about testing the material that's going to be brought in connection with this project, not testing the material that's already there. So that's one point I want to make. And of course, there is the fact that there are records available already that were offered to be reviewed by Mr. Sullivan, and they remain available to be reviewed, that talk about the materials that were brought to the site previously. And Kevin can probably, or Mr. Clark can probably describe those records and what information is contained in them better than I can. But it seems to me that we have this fairly well covered already. So that's my point.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just respond briefly. I presume that was.
Go ahead, Attorney Green. Go ahead.
Well, the first comment I'd like to make, and really, in fairness, the jurisdiction of this commission deals with the impact of the proposed activity. This is an application for a wetland permit. And while I recognize that the applicant, central to their presentation has been that they only have owned the site since May of last year, that doesn't address the impact of the activity, because truly, and as we discussed with Mr. Sullivan earlier, there are concerns about the fill which has been brought to this site and the the excavation and fill that has occurred for 14 years. And the fact that the applicant has only owned the property for some 18 months is sort of irrelevant. Really, the true issue is, under your regulations, the impact of the activity. Mr. Sullivan was clear in his report on the need for this information on water quality and the testing of materials. And so I think, in fairness, in the fair exercise of the jurisdiction of this commission, the timing of ownership is irrelevant, and really you have to deal with the impacts. We cannot assess the impacts, as Mr. Sullivan described earlier, without having this background data. So I would urge the commission to defer to Mr. Sullivan for a recommendation on the information that is required, and follow his guidance. I mean, you've hired an excellent consultant, and I would follow his guidance.
Mr. Chairman, again, Mr. Finn, I just want to respond briefly. Look, as I said, we have records for the material that's already been on site. There hasn't been, quarrying since my client took possession, from what I understand. Yeah, there's not a lot of activity going on there now, if any. We have the test for it. We have information about what material has been brought to the property. And I believe Mr. Sullivan's the scope of his review was to look at the project going forward, what is proposed. And so I think we have enough information. Obviously, Mr. Sullivan is free to venture his own opinion on this, but as I said, I don't want to go, jumping through unnecessary hoops when we already have manifest that shows the type of material that was brought. And maybe that's an interim step, Mr. Chairman. Maybe Mr. Sullivan would be willing to take a look at that. And if he decides after looking at that further testing would be a good idea, then that's a different story.
Let me refer back to Mr. Sullivan for a final response or comment on that.
So I mean, yeah, I did not look at the files on the site. I do think that taking samples gets you data which doesn't exist right now in terms of what's happening on the property. I mean, there's probably a combination between the two. I'm not prepared to give a detailed plan for sampling at this point, especially at this hour, to the commission, but that's something that, I'd be willing to look at. It sounds like having a hydrogeologist by the applicant would also assist with that development. I'm a big fan of data. I think that is the way to make conclusions. So I'll just leave it at that.
Mr. Sullivan, do you think you could offer any more value to the commission by looking at the files that attorneys said are available?
I mean, I think that I probably won't know until I see them, to be honest. I opted not to go and see them prior because I wanted to get a report in the hands of the commission in a timely manner.
Okay.
So that's the decision-making process there.
So that is an option for us.
Sure.
That is an option.
Yes.
So again, I want to finish off Attorney Schellenberg had started, or trying to close this meeting, because we're certainly going to be back here again. Any of the commissioners feel that they need any other third party, what's the word?
Review.
Professional.
A review, I was just saying.
Review, yes, on anything at this point. Commissioner Stewart brought up the soil scientist to identify if there's any wetlands or new wetlands, I guess. If I said that wrong, I apologize. Anything else that any other commissioners feel we need assistance with?
Can I suggest one to the
Mr. Glass, I just addressed my commission. I'm asking them a question. I'm waiting to make sure that they answer for me.
I would like to see the site before making that decision.
Okay, I think we have that's an open option, Elbert, for any time during the course of these proceedings.
Yes, I mean, I just think it was something useful to bring up tonight to help move things forward, but certainly if the commission feels it needs to look at the site before making that determination, the commission certainly has the discretion to do that.
All right, let me just run. I'm going to run through just, okay, so I just heard Mr. Massaraco. Are you good at this time?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, Mr. Spence?
I do like the idea of the monitoring wells. I was hoping the applicant would be forthcoming with that. But because we don't know, because the sampling has possibly been more.
Lois, we're just trying to close. We're trying to close the evening. So the question that I'm asking is that: are there any other third-party professionals that we feel we need opinion other than what?
Other than the ones we've already discussed?
Yes.
No, just those two: monitoring wells and the professional.
Thank you, Commissioner Gingrich.
Nothing else.
Nothing else. And then finally, Commissioner Hall.
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now we had, all right, Kevin, go ahead. Your hand's up.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Kevin Soley, for the record. I just wanted to say, Commissioner Spence before asked what we were going to be willing to do, and I wanted to reiterate, I said this before, I'll say this again for the record. We are engaging a hydrogeologist. We are going to be coming up with a plan and a program, and I think we're going to be able to address a lot of those concerns regarding monitoring and things like that, and provide additional information regarding any material which has come on the property. So I think if the commission allows the applicant to lead that charge, I think it'll address all those concerns.
That sounds excellent. Mr. Glass, you had something? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Evan Glass, Alt Environmental, for the intervener and through and to the commission. 3 quick questions. If the commission decides at some later date that it wants additional third-party experts to weigh in on behalf of the town, can they? And are the data that were offered to the district also offered to the intervener? And third, how far back do those data go? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, I think I asked that question of Attorney Schellenberg, and I think she answered that, is that we can ask for third-party professional help while the hearing is still going on.
Yes, as long as the public hearing is still open.
Yeah, still public hearing.
And everybody has the opportunity to, has the opportunity to address it.
Okay. Thank you. And then I think your last 2 questions were, I think the second one would be for Attorney Finn, and the third one would be maybe Kevin Soley. So Attorney Finn, you want to respond to his second question?
That is something that I'd have to discuss with my client, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. That is an answer. Thank you. And then I guess because it's a two-part question, you can if the first part is a yes. So you want to answer that question at this time? Kevin, is that you?
I can just offer some color. Again, Kevin Soley for the record.
Well, can we just answer the question first? What you want to know is how far back, if he's able to see them, how far back would the records go?
So that's what I want to say here.
Okay.
You have to remember, this property was used as a quarry, which means that the former owner excavated materials and sold those materials into the construction aggregate market. This site was not used for an import and export operation. And I think, as Mr. Sullivan stated, data is great. And there is a lot of aerial photography that's available of this property over the years. And the allegation that was stated in writing, said again at this hearing, that there was potentially 1 million yards of material imported to the property already is frankly ridiculous and can't be supported by anything. And so again, the whole operation was digging and removing material. There was no material that did not take place. It had not taken place, and the importing didn't happen until there was no more exporting, from our understanding. And we do have, as they stated, Mr. Finn is going to review with our client. We'll talk more about that. But this is not an operation that took place for 16 years of importing of material. And the town has records of what took place over those years, and that just didn't happen. So the allegation, 1 million yards of material fills this hole. It's impossible for it to have come in and still have a hole this large.
Mr. Chairman.
And I want to see if we can get an answer to Mr. Glass's question. And I think because if the records are there and Mr. Sullivan had an opportunity to look at them, the question I thought was kind of simple, just to clear this off the table here. How far back do they go? Because I think that's what his third question was. Anyone? You have to get back to us, or no comment?
I don't know the answer to the question, Mr. Chairman. That's Mr. Finn speaking.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, it's Arnold Karp, the owner of the property. I am happy to make available to the commission all the records that we have going back. I need to speak to council if we need to make that available to the intervener or not, because every time, we give them one thing, something else pops up. But let me reemphasize Mr. Kevin Soley's comment about what has allegedly been brought in, okay? This was a working quarry with product going out, not material coming in. Anything that has been coming in has a manifest to it, which we are happy to, I have to go back and look at the records because I don't know how far it goes back. But remember, material left, not came in. So I will discuss and review the records with our attorney, and we will have an answer for you either by the next meeting or ahead of the next meeting.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Green.
Just briefly, Joel Green for the record. I would just make two comments. One is that any material that is provided to the commission or provided to Mr. Sullivan has to be provided to the intervener. And if there's any question on that, I would consult with Attorney Schellenberg. And my only observation for the commission is this. When we suggested that the commission this evening consult with Mr. Sullivan about the kinds of testing, water quality, testing wells, and soil borings, the applicant suggested that it had ample data to satisfy the commission as to the quality of those materials. And yet now the applicant is suggesting that due to the nature of the use of the site, they may not have that much information. So I think this is something we need to reconcile in 2 weeks at the next session of the commission. And we look forward to reviewing that then after the site visit. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've covered everything. All right, Mr. Glass, you have your last question?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. Yes, thank you, Evan Glass, Alton Environmental for the intervener. Just want to clarify that the statements, representations made regarding the absence of fill being brought onto the site cover both sites, both property addresses that are part of the application.
We will definitely have an opportunity to address that. I think we've gotten what we need to get done for this evening is completed. Thank you, everybody, for your time. And would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
That we close the meeting.
That's a motion from Commissioner Gingras to close the meeting. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Hall. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion granted. The meeting is ending. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.